Today we're going to show you how to change the drum seal on your dryer. Really easy job. All we're going to need is a 5/16 nut driver and a putty knife. Let me show you how we do it. Now, to gain access to this component, we're going to need to lift the main top up and remove the front panel, which will expose us to some electrical circuits. So the first thing we need to do is disconnect power to the dryer. If it has a cord on it, simply remove it from the receptacle. If it's a hardwired dryer, we'll need to locate the breakers or the fuses and disconnect those. Next, we'll take a putty knife and we'll insert it in the slot between the main top and the front panel in about 4 inches from either side. You'll find a spring clip there. So we'll press that spring clip back, lift up on the main top, and then we'll tilt it back far enough and make sure it's supported against the wall. Next, we'll disconnect the wires to the door switch. Mark these before you remove them so you know where to put them again. And just tuck those out of the way. And if your dryer has a light switch on it, you'll need to remove those wires as well. There are two 5/16 hex head screws that secure the front panel to the cabinet. We'll need to remove those. Now we can tilt the front panel forward and lift it off of the two hooks on the bottom of the cabinet. Now the next step in this repair is to remove the front bulkhead. It's held in place with four 5/16 hex head screws. There are two locking tabs on the bottom portion here that will need to be disengaged as well. Pull forward the top of that bulkhead, and we'll have to lift up on the drum a little bit. We need to pull this whole front bulkhead assembly upwards to release those two tabs. Then it's a matter of sliding it forward to disengage from the blower housing. Now if we're just changing the front felt, this is as far as we need to disassemble. It'll be a matter of pulling the old felt off of the bulkhead, scraping down the excess glue, removing that, and installing the new one. If we're replacing the rear felt, we need to first of all release the belt from the drum and remove the drum from the cabinet, and the repair procedure is the same. Now the next step is to remove the drum. What we do is just tilt it forward so we can get our hand in on the top at the back and lift it off of the rear rollers just to release a little tension on the belt. The idler assembly is located in here that puts tension on that belt. So we'll reach in through this side, locate the belt and the idler, pull the idler towards the right side, release that tension, and simply roll the belt off of the idler and the motor. Now we can lift the drum out of the cabinet. And we now have access to do our repair. Well, next we'll take a piece of the old felt at the rear here, loosen it up, and then just peel it off. And take note of how the original one is laid on there, so so that you make sure that you put the new one on in the same configuration. Discard the old felt. Next, with a putty knife, not too sharp a putty knife, you find one that's a little blunt, we'll scrape off any of the old glue and felt that remains on the rear bulkhead. Now that you've removed all of the excess glue and felt from around the rim of the rear bulkhead, and taking caution again that we do not damage the paint any more than we have to, we're ready to apply a bead of high temperature adhesive all the way around that perimeter, as close to the back as possible, because the gasket will set up against the very back of it. Before you apply the high temperature adhesive, you may want to cover up the blower outlet as well as the rear drum rollers with a rag, just so that we don't get any excess glue on them. Now that we have our adhesive in place, we're ready to install the felt. Just go slow when you're putting this felt on so that we don't pull it off of the other side and end up with adhesive all over the bulkhead. We also want to make sure that we don't get adhesive the outside of that felt as well, because that's what your drum is going to ride up against. Now we'll make sure that we have it nice and even all the way around, and then according to the manufacturer's instructions of the adhesive, we'll have to let that sit long enough to cure, and then we're ready to put the drum back in. Now we're ready to replace the drum. Set it back just far enough that it touches the rear drum rollers. Line the belt up where it should be, and then we'll reattach it to the either end of the motor pulleys. Now we can lift it up onto the rear drum rollers. And we'll just give it a couple turns to make sure that the belt lines itself up. And now we're ready to put the front bulkhead on. Now we're ready to reinstall the bulkhead. All we have to do is make sure that we have the drum sitting on the two front glides, and that we have this lined up with the blower housing. Lift the whole assembly up so that we can re-engage the two tabs into the slots on the cabinet. Now we can install the 4 screws. Next, we're ready for the front panel. Now we're ready to reinstall the front panel. So we'll locate the 2 slots on the bottom of the front panel with the hooks on the base of the cabinet. Make sure those are engaged. There are a couple of locator pins that are on the back side of the front panel that will line up holes in the front of the cabinet. So make sure those line up. Next, we'll reinstall the 5/16 screws and secure the front panel to the cabinet. Next, we'll reinstall the wires to the light bulb. Make sure the terminals fit snugly. If they're loose, you'll need to crimp them with a pair of needle nose pliers. Next, we'll reconnect the wires to the door switch. Now we're ready to put the main top down. We'll engage the locator pins all the way around, and then snap it into place. We're ready to reconnect the power, and our repair is complete.